Tradition and modernity, the convergence between the two, have been a great source of inspiration for all artists in Turkey since the early Republic era, and architect Nazimi Yaver Yenal was no different. Let's have a look at this extraordinary Turkish artist's career with an exhibition that takes place in Istanbul.
Nazimi Yaver Yenal was a 20th century Turkish architect whose works have survived to the present day and reflect his 50-year career.
Yine de özellikle Türkiye'de
This archive material about the history of architecture is incredibly rare in Turkey. To be able to see so many projects designed by one architect still remaining to this day gives us the opportunity to analyze his career and the era he belonged to. And this is really very important.
mimarın iki dönemini görüyoruz.
Yenal is typical of the early Republic generation with idealistic principles. But it's not the only thing that makes him stand out from the crowd. Nazimi Yaver Yenal is known as a paper architect. It's a term used for describing somebody whose work is purely theoretical, having never come alive or been used in the wider world. Even though he had so much talent and so many projects, none of his designs were ever built. He attended the first architectural competition held by the then very young Turkish Republic. But even his award-winning single-story villa was never built. It's one of his many designs which shed a light on his unique style.
Türkiye genelinde mimarlık tarihinden bir
We aim to present a segment here from Turkey's and specifically Istanbul's history of architecture. And another thing we wanted to achieve with this exhibition was to represent this architect who was from Istanbul, had so much talent and started his career with great promise, but was somehow forgotten.
kurcalayınca
The Istanbul Research Institute hasn't just brought Yenal's career back to the surface, it also returns us to an era of memories which otherwise would have been forgotten.
bizim zaten
The art history, archaeology and architecture of this city is very important to us, and we would like to offer a window into the past. Architecture is always one of the main subjects of our research, but we either know very few architects from the past or we don't know what they produced. Especially documented on paper, we come across just a few examples. Particularly because of that, this archive is very precious to us.
çok az insan biliniyor.
Thanks to this exhibition, Imaginary World of a Paper Architect, an alternative realm of architectural production, and a visionary who fell by the wayside have another chance to be understood.
Now, to discuss this further, I'm joined from Paris by curator Buke Uras. Buke, how did you come up with the idea to exhibit these works?
I've been collecting Ottoman architectural drawings for some time, and I found the archives of Nazimi Yaver Yenal, a very enigmatic and unknown figure of 20th century Turkish architecture, 2 years ago. And since 2 years, we have been, with the support of Suna and the Inan Karaç Foundation, we have been studying thoroughly the archive of Nazimi Yaver Yenal, which very fortunately ended up with an extensive exhibition in Istanbul Research Institute in Istanbul. And more we studied the archives of Nazimi Yaver Yenal, more interesting story really became. He's, as I said, a very enigmatic and unknown, forgotten figure of Turkish architecture of 20th century. But in the beginning, in 1920s, when he started the school, which was the Imperial School of Fine Arts, which was the first and only architectural academy of the Ottoman Empire, he was known as the most important, most successful student of the academy.
As he's so accomplished and well-regarded, why were his works never realized?
Well, actually, this is the most important point. There are many theories about this, which I don't think it's only one reason that led his designs not to be implemented? I think it's a combination of many, many reasons. The most important reason is very uncommon for the study of architectural history, which is the person, the architect itself. All the people who personally knew Nazimi Yaver Yenal talks about his introvert character. So I think this is the most important thing. The second most important thing, in his academic years in 1920s, the methodology of Imperial Fine Arts School was strictly based on Paris École des Beaux-Arts, where the architectural drawing was at the center of the architectural education. But the most important reason, I think, is what he witnessed in from 1930 to 1932 in Berlin. As I said, he goes to Berlin with the scholarship of the state to work in Paris and then Berlin. The Berlin years of 1930 of Nazimi Yaver Yenal is the most problematic years of Weimar Republic, right before the rise to power of Adolf Hitler. These years are, after the Great Depression of 1929, are very problematic economically and also politically. But in spite of these very problematic economical conditions, Berlin manages to influence with its avant-garde currents an entire European intelligentsia with the power of the paper itself. So although nearly most of the drawings and designs are not implemented in the Berlin years, Berlin manages to influence an entire continent with its avant-garde currents.
Since his works didn't get realized, can you just tell us briefly, to wrap up, what do you think the art and culture world lost not seeing these drawings come to fruition?
I don't think the art world or architectural world lost. I think they gained, because we have a very different and very productive architect here. He comes back to Istanbul in 1932, and these are the Atatürk years, as you know. And these are the years of statist economy. Right after Great Depression influence reached Turkey, Atatürk started, as you know, the first 5-year plan of statist economy. And these years are very important because architects cannot work alone. They work and they can survive only if they make part of the academy, only if they can make part of the state, if they work for the state. So working for the state and working for the academy itself in 1930s is a wonderful career move. And Nazimi Yaver Yenal does the same thing.
We're going to have to leave it there. We're out of time, but I appreciate your
Yes.
passion for this work, and we hope people can check out these paperworks in the near future.